The shaky head is deadly effective, but you've got to know how to rig it first before you can use it, and that's what today's video is all about. My name is Wesley Littlefield with YourBassGuy.com, and today I'm going to show you how I rig the shaky head. Lately, I've fallen in love with a shaky head. That's because it's landed me some of my biggest fish of the year so far. Considering that it's relatively simple to fish and very simple to rig, I'm kind of surprised that I didn't fish it sooner. First, let's talk about what you need for a shaky head. I prefer like a medium fast action rod. The reel speed kind of varies. I use like a 6-to-1, that intermediate, not a fast but not a real slow reel either. And then I'm always throwing it on either like a 12-pound fluoro, but you can throw it on braid. Not my favorite to throw with braid because braid tends to float and shaky head's meant to fish on the bottom. So I'll usually use like a fluorocarbon because it sinks. So we got the rod and the reel out of the way, the line out of the way. Now, the shaky head. What is a shaky head? Well, it's a jig head, and that's really it. Most of them have a screw lock or some kind of corkscrew looking thing on them that you can actually just thread your soft plastic on and hook it in and get to fishing. And that's the kind that I prefer, but you can also use a jig head the same way that you would a shaky head. The main difference that I see from like a regular jig head versus a shaky head is actually the shape right here too. If you can see that, it's actually flattened at the top here, so that way when it hits the bottom it sets at an angle like this, and then you actually shake it and make it wiggle, and that's what causes it to action, unlike a rounded jig head. With that said, does it make that big of a difference? I've never compared them side by side, but the reason that I buy a shaky head jig specifically is because it's super simple to rig, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Alright, so to rig it, like I said, it's super simple. That's why I always buy the shaky head jig. You're just going to push your little corkscrew into the top of the soft plastic and just start twisting and pushing and threading it on there. Once you get it seated up against the jig head itself, make sure it's straight. Find out where you need to go through the plastic at. Come through like so. And I always push it just to where that tip, I can just barely feel it poke through, and then when the plastic relaxes again, it actually gets hidden. That keeps it a lot more weedless, less tangles, everything. You know, I'm not getting snagged nearly as much as if I had that point sticking out. And that's it. Now you're ready to tie on and get to fishing. I use a simple fisherman's knot or a Palomar knot, either one. I mean, everybody's got their favorite knot. Use your favorite knot to tie it on and get to fishing. To fish it, I'm gonna cast it out there and I'm gonna let it sink to the bottom, and then I'm gonna jiggle my rod tip and make it do a little dance. You know, it'll sit there and jiggle and dance in the water like that, and then I'm gonna reel it in a little bit and maybe pop it and make it flutter up, and then it floats back down, and then it's gonna do another little dance. When I caught my biggest fish this year, I actually cast it out there, started messing with something in my kayak, and noticed that my line was swimming off. So I literally just let it set out there and it got a bite. So another beautiful thing about the shaky head, it's almost a do nothing bait. Now sometimes that's boring, I know, but sometimes that's what you gotta do to catch fish. That's the shaky head. Now if you wanna know another go-to killer rig that I use when the bite gets tough, that would be the wacky rig. And there's a video explaining it down below. I'll see you in that video. But don't forget that education is important, but fishing is essential.